One day, my mom and I went out for a walk. We had the best day. Earlier that morning, my mom and dad and I had breakfast, and there's always music in our home. I had ducks and chickens and a horse, cattle, hogs. I mean, pretty much everything we needed was right there. It was a great time in my life. I was also a cheerleader. We were looking forward to having a big game and an assembly with all the kids. We've been rehearsing. So things were really going well in my life. And so that day, we had gotten up, had breakfast. My mom and I went for a long walk on our land, and we were singing songs. We came back to the house, and I was just feeling really good. I was in my room, packing my duffel bag, getting things ready for school the following week. Went to sleep and was just looking forward to the next day. My mom burst into my room in the middle of the night, and she said, "Get up, pack everything you have. We're leaving tonight."
What?
And I don't know if we're able to be able to come back. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? She said, "Get up, pack everything you can. We're leaving this house right now, and I don't believe we'll ever be able to come back."
What?
So I grew up in a really large home, and we had help and all sorts of things. And so it was a great life. I did what my mom said. I just started to put things in this duffel bag, the cheerleading bag that I had planned to use from the game. So I started just throwing everything I could in that bag. We get in the car. We end up at my uncle's house. I fall asleep. Next thing I know, we have to leave there. We end up someplace else. Ultimately, we end up in a YMCA, and I'm asking my mom what's going on, and she said, "I finally had to stand up. I had to stand up against your dad for domestic violence." I was in complete shock. I knew they had problems. I knew what was going on, but I just never realized it was going to come to that. So after that day, over the course of the next probably 24 months, we lived in 5 or 6 different places. Sometimes we would have to leave in the middle of the night. Sometimes it would be in a kind of a hostile situation. And I went from living in an over 6,000 square foot house to living in basically 10 by 10s from time to time. I would go from having everything that I could ever want to hanging on to that duffel bag because that was all that I had. I went from knowing that I had all these great people and friends and family around me to having to rely on the Holy Spirit inside me to get through each and every day. Things were stolen from me. I saw things that I shouldn't have seen as a young tween, but God was still good in all of that. So when you ask about was there a pivotal time when the Holy Spirit really made itself known to me, it definitely was then, because my grandma had always said, "Reach up." And I would reach up to God. She said, "Reach up to God, because if I'm not here someday, you know that you can always reach up to Him." My mom said, "Stand up. When something is against you, when things that aren't right, you stand up. You stand up for yourself."
Dang. So I guess I have a few follow-up questions to that story you just told me, and that is definitely sounds like a pivotal moment. So
thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. You had one thing that caught my attention before that story. You said you grew up with both grandparents around you and a lot of cousins. So what happened to the family formation after you and your mom left? And I guess ultimately, like, sounds like you still speak very highly of your father and the unity piece. Like, how did it all kind of conclude, and where did you go from there?
Yes. So incidentally, my mom and dad met through a third cousin who introduced them, and they grew up in neighboring towns. And so there was a lot of intertapestry and interwinding of our families, both sides. Through a series of years, and it took their divorce, a number of years for their divorce to be final with everything that they were tied up in, there was forgiveness, ultimately. My mom and dad still attended a lot of my events. I mean, finally, we were able to feel where we were because we were in hiding for a long time.
Yeah.
And finally, my dad said he wanted to see me, and so they were able to work it out. But there was a lot that happened in between the times where it was really difficult until we got to where we are today. But my mom and dad were both there for my high school graduation. They were both there for my college graduation. I have been married, and my mom and dad both walked me down the aisle together.
Amazing.
And on top of that, my mom was in my dad's house the day that he passed away.
Oh.
So the power of forgiveness is just unbelievable. And I think that my mom, her ability to forgive, and then my dad's ability to ask for forgiveness was huge.
Yeah.
They grew up together. My mom met my dad, I think, when she was 17, and they got married within that first year. He bought her first car. He taught her to drive. I mean, there's so many things that happened. My mom helped my dad build his businesses, and there's just a lot that happened over those years. And so there's a lot of healing and forgiveness. And sadly, I don't have my daddy anymore. I do still speak highly of him because I feel like he's always with me, but he is with the Lord. And that was a sweet time where my mom was able to be there. We moved to Texas, so I grew up in Oklahoma, and my mom even came all the way to Texas during that time when my dad was really sick.